Hi, this is Eddie Muller. I am back with the latest installment of Ask Eddie and Ann. And you may notice, well, first off, Ann, how the heck are you?
I'm good, thank you. Other
Okay.
than Charlotte clogged me today.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
Where is she now? Is she in the closet or something? Is she,
she's in the bedroom. So
okay.
I don't know if she's
Locked
going to
in?
come
Is
out
she
or not.
locked in? So we're not,
She's not locked in, but we had quite a to-do. And once I bandaged myself, she more or less apologized and made sure that she wasn't in trouble anymore.
okay. But we probably won't be seeing a special guest appearance today from Charlotte.
Probably not.
Okay. Well, that's how it goes. And I'm sure people have noticed that I'm in a totally different place this time. Last time, I think we spoke, you were in Sugar Land, Texas.
Yeah.
I am in Atlanta, Georgia, because I just flew in. You can see I'm in a hotel room. I just flew in today from the coast to record more episodes of Noir Alley for TCM tomorrow, starting tomorrow. And I am totally loopy. I mean, who knows what I'm going to say, because it was like an emergency thing. Flights got canceled, and I got a call literally in the middle of the night telling me that I had to get out of the house and onto the first available plane to Atlanta, or I wouldn't get here in time. So I left my house at 4 a.m. This morning, and I made it here. But seriously, I'm spaced out. So let's find out what happens when Eddie is this spaced out.
Okay. This is from Phil in Boston. You mentioned that Dana Delaney will be appearing on a forthcoming Noir Alley. Are you aware of contemporary actors, directors, etc., who are fans of the genre or students of old films in general?
Yes, definitely. In fact, that's funny. That's the very first question, because in about 90 minutes, I'm going to be having dinner with Dana, because she is flying in from Los Angeles as we speak, So, yeah, we're going to be connecting shortly. Oh, she couldn't stay away. She has to come right in. Look at her. Look at her kissing up to you now, trying to get back in your good graces. Oh, and even sound from her tonight. Very good. Yeah. So, yes, there are a lot of these people. It sounds like Phil from Boston may not be aware that, in the Noir City magazine,
Yeah.
we do these special features, 5 favorites, where we have people, from other writers, directors, artists, talk about their favorite noir films. We also have a feature in the magazine called Prime Cuts, my favorite neo-noir, where those are always contributions from people outside, the bullpen at
Yeah.
Noir City. So we get a lot of crime writers, crime and mystery writers who contribute to that. But we've had a real interesting assortment. Dan Klaus, the comic book artist, author, did one, and Jello Biafra of the Dead Kennedys did one, and we've had quite an array. But yes, I am aware that Noir Alley has a lot of fans. That's David Mamet, watches all the time. Anyway, yes, there are a lot. Steve Buscemi, I learned about that one because he just was giving an interview, and he said, basically during the pandemic, all I do is watch TCM, and I love Noir Alley and blah, blah, blah. That was nice. Rosie Perez said the same thing in an interview, that she's a big Noir Alley fan. So anyway, that's good.
Yeah,
So,
and also Dana's going to be contributing an article to our next edition of North City Magazine on Gloria
indeed,
Graham.
yes, indeed she is. I have read the story. It's really sensational. Very, very insightful, because it's called like One Actress to Another. And she really gets in there and sort of analyzes the Gloria Graham mystique. Anyway, it's great. And so and when Dana is here, she'll be a guest programmer on TCM, but then she's also going to co-host 2 episodes of Noir Alley with me, and no surprise, it's 2 Gloria Graham pictures. So
Yeah,
I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, and if people are interested in the upcoming issue, They can subscribe to North City Magazine by donating $20 or more at the Film Noir Foundation. So filmnoirfoundation.org, hit the contribute button, and then signing up on our email list. And if you sign up on our email list, it's free. You get a link when the issue comes out to download the digital edition. And then you also are on our newsletter. And our newsletter is where we solicit questions for Ask Eddie.
Fantastic. That's great. So that's what's happening tonight. I'm going to be so loopy, I might embarrass myself in front of Dana. I've only spoken to Dana. I've never met her before. I mean, no, I met her once at a TCM festival a long time ago, but it's been a while. So anyway, okay. Oh, and the next, now we're going to alternate as usual.
Okay.
Okay, this is a little embarrassing because the Susan M says, I loved Billy Nichols in The Distance and Shadow Boxer. That's the character that I created. That's kind of based on my dad. Those are my two crime fiction novels. And Susan asked, when will Billy be a noir movie? Soon, I hope. Well, Susan, don't hold your breath. I honestly don't think that's going to happen. When the first novel came out, 18 years ago or something, there was a little bit of interest, and some actors wanted to take an option on the book to see if they could get it made into a movie. William Peterson was one, and Tom Selleck was the other. I saw neither of them as Billy Nichols. Peterson, maybe I could see that, but I didn't sell the option because I didn't. It was just one of a number of projects that each guy was putting together, and that's not the way to do it. So I didn't sell the option, and it never has sold. The only way that is going to get done is if there is an actor who wants to do it. Yeah. Right? That's the only way it's going to happen. And for a while, to show you how long ago this was, the actor that I wanted to have play the part was Johnny Depp. Yeah. And that's not going to happen now. Johnny Depp can't get a movie made now like he used to be able to do. So anyway, don't hold your breath.
And
thank you, Susan, for liking my book. Thank you very much.
Okay. And I accidentally lost the name of the person who asked this question. So my apologies. Eddie, I have 3 questions in regard to The Third Man and also your novels. 1, do you believe moral hypocrisy was the point of The Third Man, the novel?
The novel or the movie?
The novel.
Okay. I don't know that it was the point. It's certainly evident in the story. Moral hypocrisy. Yeah, I could see that as one of the themes. I'm hesitant to say that was the point because I don't actually know if Graham Greene felt that was the point. So I certainly have ideas about Graham Greene and his writing. Yeah. And the thing that was interesting to me about Graham Greene, and I just wrote one of the films I will be introducing this week, taping, is Brighton Rock.
Oh, it's great movie.
Which is another, Graham Greene story. And it occurred to me when I was writing these intros that basically everything Graham Greene writes about, particularly his entertainments, are about the question of good and evil. I mean, and he was such a Catholic that it was like the overriding theme in all of his stories. And the thing that was so interesting to me about him is he was a believer, but all of his books are like challenges to his own belief, where he's like questioning whether he really thinks, people are just inherently evil, or are, and the answer is neither. That people can behave in really evil ways and they can behave in good ways. And I think his stories are all about this struggle. And what I like about Graham Greene's work is he's a believer who isn't sanctimonious. He really delves in there and says, well, if you believe, then how do you deal with this? So when creating a character like Pinky in Brighton Rock, who is just an awful, awful person.
Yeah.
You know? And it's sort of a challenge. And I appreciate that Greene did that in his books, you know.
Yeah, and it is weird because I've read about like people separating out like his Catholic novels from the rest of his work, but they're all Catholic novels.
They're all Catholic novels, you know.
And he's just
Yeah, I love Our Man in Havana. I love that. The book, the movie is good, but the book especially is really that's like one of his funnier books. I mean, it doesn't really end up that way, but there's a lot of humor in that book that I appreciate. Anyway.
Yeah, and I think all of us, I mean, have enjoyed everything he's written, but I really, really liked Brighton Rock. I think that's my favorite of his.
Well, you know what was funny, Anne, is we recently had a question someone asked, and it was a really good question that I don't think we answered adequately, was about the ironic endings, right, in film noir. And it popped into my head when I was writing the intro for Brighton Rock, the end of that film. And it's funny because the end of the movie is different from the end of the book, and I don't want to give a spoiler here necessarily.
Yeah.
But the end of the movie has one of those kind of kick in the stomach, ironic endings.
Yeah.
That can be interpreted in many different ways. And just like we're talking about, you know, how do you interpret Graham Greene? The ending of that story can be interpreted several ways. Like, is there some kind of divine intervention that is sparing Rose from the truth? Or is it just completely horrific that she's in love with this guy and thinks he's leaving her a message that's a declaration of love when in fact, anyway, I'm spoiling the whole end now, but people who haven't seen it can watch it when I show it on Noir Alley. I honestly don't remember the date, but it's sometime coming up soon. It might be in October.
And just let you know, on my end, it looks like your video is frozen. And just so people know, because you're in a hotel, the Wi-Fi is maybe a little.
Well, I'm going to have to gripe to management because I paid for the upgraded Wi-Fi package just to do this. So I hope it isn't too wonky. Mine looks fine on my screen, but you know, we'll see.
Okay. Well, hopefully
we better keep rolling then. Okay.
Yeah. Do you think that Greene is admitting that God exists in sparks of goodness in the likes of Calloway, Holly, and even Harry?
Oh, well, see, that is a direct reference. And I think I just answered that. Unwittingly, I think I just answered that he clearly sees both and that they're in, you know, eternal conflict. And I think that's what his stories are about.
And this is funny because it's sort of related to the first question. Are your novels ever coming to the silver screen?
Again, thank you very much for the interest, and don't hold your breath. I don't think that that period noir stuff is a hot ticket right now. New ones, you know.
Yeah.
It's nice. We're having a bit of a renaissance for the older films, but I don't think there's a rush to make period noir films now. And my books are certainly that. You know, they're very of their period.
Okay. Recently, I viewed. Oh no, it's your turn to ask a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I forgot where we were.
You just sent these to me, and I am literally just looking at them on my iPad here. Okay, the question is, recently, this is Paul in Crescent City, California. He says, I recently viewed Hollow Triumph on Noir Alley, and I noticed in the credits that Ern and Frank Westmore did the makeup. Paul has noticed Westmore credits all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, for the brothers, you know, Bud, Perce, and Michael. He says, these folks must be prolific in movie makeup. Can you give us the backstory? Yes, the Westmore family was, right, the main makeup family in Hollywood, if you want to call them that.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I'm trying to remember like who the patriarch is, but I know Perce Westmore, which is for Percival, because I think a lot of people call him Perk Westmore, and it's actually Perce Westmore. And Michael and Frank and Ern and all, and they opened up a beauty salon in Hollywood called the House of Westmore, that was very famous. Marlene Dietrich, and I think that the story goes, whether he was in I think this was Perce, was either in a relationship with Kay Francis, or I don't know, but Kay Francis gave him the money. When they were opening that beauty salon and ran out of dough, she gave him literally a blank check. That's how popular and well paid Kay Francis was at that time. And then that's how they established the salon. And it was hugely popular with all the big actresses in Hollywood. And yeah, their names are on virtually everything.
Okay, let's see, it's my turn. And this is from Alfred in Santa Clara. Can a film noir with a happy ending really qualify as noir when the premise is humans lack agency and are twisted around by fate? Even the villains in heist films generally fail. Okay,
so Alfred is asking, can it really be noir if there's a happy ending? That seems, my answer to that, and he says, these happy endings are caused by twists of fate. Well, news alert, fate can work in positive ways too. And so, the fate theme, while it's very important, I tend to think of it less about fate than going kind of back to what we were just talking about with Graham Greene. I think that what you see in a lot of noir, and this is sort of what we talked about a few weeks ago when the idea of existentialism in relation to noir came up, is that there's sort of an indifference, the acceptance of an indifference to your fate. Like, there is no greater force that's going to help you out. Right? That's what you see a lot in noir. Now, some of the creators, that's their point in making that point, and others, that's not the point. And a lot of these films, I think the writers wrote the happy ending in themselves because they just knew that's what they're going to tack on anyway.
Yeah.
Or they fought against it and had the happy endings enforced upon them. And so my feeling is that's why when I talk about these things, I really, really try to go back to the source material to understand the intentions. And so if the original novelist or the screenwriter was writing this and then the production code changed the ending, I'm not going to disqualify the film from being noir because some other ending was enforced on their vision. Mm-hmm. Right? So, I mean, you look at something like Thieves Highway, Buzz Bizzarides, his vision of the world is so clear in that story. His cynicism and his notion that, business is just corrupt from the get-go is very noir, and it's not changed by the PCA mandated happy ending where Richard Conte and Valentina Corteza get together at the end and drive off in his truck and live happily ever after. Yeah. That stupid 1 minute ending does not overturn the previous 90 minutes. That's just the way I look at it. So no, I don't think, because of the time in which they were made, I don't think you can say a happy ending invalidates a film's noir credentials because they were under the supervision of the production code.
No.
That is my answer. Okay, here we go. This is Lauren from Chicago, who is a man and asks a lot of questions of us. Lauren has this, it's kind of a long question about heist films, which is one of his favorite subgenres of noir. He enjoys watching the planning and plotting and the growing anticipation, and needless to say, something goes wrong. Yeah, of course. And he said, it's funny, he says here, it seems that there was an unwritten law in Hollywood in those days that says crime does not pay. Lauren, it was a written law. It wasn't an unwritten law. That was a written law that crime could not pay. But then he notes that in recent times that's changed. Crime does pay, especially if you have fewer people involved in the heist. And he asks, when did it change? When did the unwritten law change in movies? And the answer is with the diminishment of the production code. Then you could actually get away with things, right? And it's, again, so many writers were just champing at the bit to write something that was liberated from the edicts of the production code, that nothing was greater than a heist film where people actually got away with it, you know? Yeah. Again, I don't want to give, I can cite examples, but I'm not going to, because I don't want to give away the films for people who haven't seen them, especially when they're heist films and all the suspense hinges on, are they going to get away with it or not? And also Lauren asks about one particular film he's having trouble finding, which is Six Bridges to Cross with Tony Curtis. And why is that so hard to find? We have actually shown that at Noir City several times. Yeah, that was based on the Great Brinks robbery in Boston, and it's a good movie. Sidney Boehm, who's a tremendous, was a crime reporter turned screenwriter, wrote the screenplay for that, and Joe Pevney directed it. And it's really cool because it's early Sal Mineo, and Sal Mineo plays Tony Curtis as a young boy, and he nails it. I mean, he clearly studied Tony Curtis, and it's really good. Universal doesn't, they don't really put out their stuff that well. I hate to say it, but there's a lot of Universal pictures that have not been released digitally, and I hope it will still happen. Maybe they need to be informed that Six Bridges to Cross can kind of be called, it's not truly a film noir, but it's a heist film, and it should be released. That's what I have to tell you, Lauren.
And let's see, this is Jeff from Boston. The question is, why do many film noirs like Nightmare Alley utilize spiritualism as a theme? The obvious answer seems to be spiritualism made a performance out of communicating with the dead or peering into the future, which is not possible in our rational age and can only be the workings of a con. It is also narratively demands for karmic retribution for those who dare such acts. However, when we watch a classic film noir, we must suspend our disbelief and are willingly being conned into buying a story as real life, as if in reality is plots towards a clear meaning with some inherent injustice. The noir anti-hero goes further. They believe they can beat the rigged house of the cosmos. I would love your thoughts on spiritualism and the recurrence of its theme in film noir.
It's funny, a lot of these questions this week are kind of interconnected somehow, because this kind of feels a little bit like what we were talking about a moment ago with Graham Greene.
Yeah.
I dare say that I find it slightly specious to think that in our rational age, you know, that the con job has been dispelled or something. I think it's more prevalent than ever. And you know, whether it's in an organized, big time fashion like certain evangelicals, you know, or just hucksters like John Edwards and his, you know, seeing into the afterlife stuff. You know, I have a very jaundiced view of that stuff. But I'm kind of grasping to see what the question is here, honestly, because I don't know that this subject has been dealt with a lot in film noir. It certainly was in Noir Alley, and it certainly was in The Spiritualist, the movie called The Spiritualist. And I guess you see in Fallen Angel, John Carradine plays a phony spiritualist, you know, and I guess you see it, I guess in Ministry of Fear, there's kind of a phony spiritualist racket.
Yeah.
But I think that's all that's all part and parcel of the writers of this type of fiction see all that as a complete con job,
Yeah.
right? And I do think there are movies that depict a more genuine uh, approach to spiritualism, or the search for meaning or explanation or something. um I'm kind of drawing a blank at the moment. I don't know if you have any ideas on that score, but
Well, sorry. Yeah, I was thinking. I mean, I think one of the things that makes The Night Has a Thousand Eyes such a great story is that he starts out as a stage spiritualist, and then sort of the impetus of his character is that he has actual powers, and then he
yes,
goes and takes himself away and lives in Bunker Hill, and avoids using his gift until sort of he's forced into the position of this coming up again.
that's a really good call there, Anne. That's a great example. Yeah, and how the things that are predicted are not exact, but by the end of the movie, the prediction has come true. They just misinterpreted
Yeah.
certain elements of it. Yeah, that's really great. That's like it reminds me of one of my all-time favorite movies, which was Don't Look Now.
Oh, it's a great film.
Don Sutherland and Julie Christie, where he believes he's tapped into a message from the spirit world, and he misinterprets it. And the movie has a very, very different ending that when you watch the film a few times, you realize that the different ending is right in front of his face throughout the whole movie. And he just chooses to look past it because he wants to believe, and
Yeah.
that's a great film.
Well, and also it's interesting that you brought that up, because I was literally just reading about that movie. I was reading, and this is like the third or fourth time I've read this book, which is June Clover's book, Men, Women, and Chainsaws, which I cannot recommend enough, which is a look at the horror films of the 1980s and the representation of gender and the male audience's cross-identification with the female characters. And it was really interesting because what she was talking about with those types of movies, and specifically Don't Look Now, is that that women are the locus for that kind of spiritualism, and that that as he is a male character, he is unable to interpret it correctly.
Right.
He literally fails in both first sight and second sight at the end of the movie.
That's so interesting. Yeah, because and I see that a lot in these films, and it's actually, I don't want to get. This is a really good question, and it deserves a good answer, but I don't want to get weighted down. But I'm not pitching my book, but I will say that this is an issue that I address several times in Dark City, where I talk about the search for something to replace the character's lack of confidence in, let's say, organized religion. That everything has failed these characters in noir, and they're looking for something to replace it. And very often that is where these female characters come in. Like, that's how they're going to find this,
Yeah.
And the redemption or the meaning or something, the women hold that power.
Yeah.
I mean, I had long talks with my pal Elroy about this, and if somebody asked me what is the theme of James Elroy's fiction, I would say men's failure to deal with women in a way that gives them the redemption that they're craving. That's kind of the theme of Elroy's fiction, because the women are the answer in his stories, and the men either don't see it or can't get with it. They can't deal with it. So anyway, that's a soul searching question, but as I say, I do wind that into several chapters of Dark City, including, you just mentioned Night Has a Thousand Eyes. That's a subject that I kind of bring up in relation to Cornell Woolrich and Alfred Hitchcock, both, who were kind of, they were the creators asking the question about, why me? And then when it happens to me, like, who's going to help me? How do I get out of this? And that's a very serious spiritual question. Like, are you alone, or is there something that you can summon or that you believe in that could help you out of this predicament? You certainly see that in The Wrong Man, right? And Hitchcock was very tortured as to whether his depiction of Manny's salvation in that movie was legitimate or not. It comes off like a miracle of sorts. And anyway, interesting question.
Hey, so you can ask the next one.
Oh, okay. Okay, I recently discovered that a few years ago, Gary Sandy had played Mike Hammer in a stage production called Encore for Murder. I believe it was written by Max Allan Collins. Have either of you seen the production or read the play? I'd love to read it. I never knew there was a Mike Hammer theatrical play. Well, I'm going to be honest, and that question is asked by Dennis. I saw this question come across the transom in email, so I called Max Collins and I said, "What's the story behind this?" And he confirmed that yes, indeed, he had written the play and they did it. I can't remember where it was performed. Hold on one second. Bear with me just a moment. I'm going to see if I can magically pull this up. I'm going to, I may have. Yeah. Okay. Here, I'm going to give you the answer straight from Max Collins. Okay. I did 2 audio productions for Blackstone with Stacy Keach as Mike Hammer and a full cast, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Hold on. Okay. Encore for Murder was nominated for the same award, which was Best Audio Production. They were both written based on Mickey Spillane's synopses. We did them in Chicago with a lot of Second City veterans, including Tim Kazurinsky. I believe both Death, the show is called A Little Death, and Encore for Murder, they are both still available on CD. Each one is almost 3 hours each. Rewrote them into plays, so they were like audio book things first. First wrote them as plays designed to be presented radio style with sound effects and a crew in the orchestra pit and actors in costumes, blah, blah, blah. Encore for Murder was produced for 4 performances at Owensboro, Kentucky's River Park Center. Gary Sandy appeared as Mike Hammer, and the cast included members of the Firesign Theater. How about that? All concerned did a fine job. It was presented again with Gary as Hammer in Clearwater, Florida at the Ruth Eckert Hall in January and February of 2018, kicking off the 100th anniversary of Spillane's birth. It was a terrific production. Max was there for the first week. A full musical score was written and a big screen with scene-setting images played behind the action throughout. There was still a radio aspect with the microphone scripts and sound effects station, but it was closer to a full theatrical production. Gary used no script, for example, and various areas had mini sets like Mike Hammer's office. It was advertised as a world premiere, and in a way it was, because it was a much more elaborate presentation. Okay. A Little Death has not been presented either as anything other than the original Stacy Keach audio production. He adapted it for a graphic novel published by Titan Books not that long ago. So there's the full answer straight from the horse's mouth, Max Allan Collins.
I am so impressed with you, Eddie, because when I read that question, that was not the answer I thought we would get. Good job.
What? Well, when I have direct access to the source, I'll use it. And Max is another one of those guys who watches Noir Alley religiously. I think he even ask Eddie and Ann. So that's great. Max is just a real Renaissance man, and he's great. People should read his he's carried on from Mickey. He writes the Mike Hammer books now, but he also writes his own historical mystery novels about a private eye named Nathan Heller, and they're very good as well.
Okay, and this one is from our friend Vivian in Ann Arbor. And an earlier installment of Ask Getty, you talked of musical noirs, specifically the musicals of Dennis Potter. I wonder if you've seen the Broadway musical City of Angels, with this parallel plots of a writer in private eye character creation. It uses a lot of conventions of the hard-boiled fiction. Also, what do you think of Warner Brothers' 1941 movie Blues in the Night? It is a strange mixture of musical comedy, crime drama, and sexual obsession. For me, it is oddly compelling. So, City of Angels, have you seen it?
I have seen it. Yeah, I've seen 2 stage productions of it. It's good. It's very entertaining. It's certainly, I think that's Larry Gelbart, I believe, wrote it. The guy who, co-created MASH all those years ago. So there's it's very savvy in its understanding of the tropes of detective fiction, and it lays them over. It's a story about a down on his heels writer in Hollywood who is creating this detective alter ego, and so it very much like The Singing Detective, Potter's story. It veers between elaborate musical numbers that are his imagination and then his real life as a ink-stained wretch. And Blues in the Night is great. It's a very interesting film that I've tried to program at Noir City, but it's very hard to get a good 35 millimeter print of it. I do think it is available on DVD, and everybody should watch it because it's a little corny at times, and it's depiction of jazz musicians, but there's some really interesting racial stuff in it between the black and white jazz musicians that was pretty ahead of its time. And Elia Kazan has a small role in it. One of the few times you're going to see him on screen. So yes, I second Vivian's recommendation of that film.
You want to read the next one?
Oh yes, of course. I'm sorry. I'll get with it. I told you. I warned you. I was loopy. Okay. Sharon says, "Boy, this is like the 3rd time in a row this film has come up in Ask Eddie. Who's ever marketing the reissue of La Piscine is doing a really good job.
They are.
Because Sharon just saw the 1969 film La Piscine. It was always described by film critics as a psychological thriller, but the swimming pool drowning scene is one. Well, now we're spoiling stuff again.
I know.
One of the most noir scenes I've ever witnessed in a film. It's terrifying. Is there any other film noir, American or foreign, that you are aware of that has a pool scene that compares to La Piscine? Well, that would indicate that the motivations of the characters are the same as they are in this film, which is pretty hard to imagine. But there are great pool scenes. If you just want to talk about great pool scenes in noir, I have several, starting of course with Cat People. That's like that might be my favorite swimming pool scene of all time, right?
And it's great because it's a woman terrorizing another woman, which is another reason why I love that so much.
Yeah, it's fantastic, which will be my Halloween presentation on Noir Alley. So if you haven't seen it, you can. It's actually, I'm very excited. For the first time ever, I'm doing a double bill on Noir Alley for Halloween. I don't know if it falls exactly on Halloween, but it's the show closest to Halloween. And we're showing Cat People and The Leopard Man as a double bill because they were so short. And I said, let's do 2. I felt like Ernie Banks. I don't know if you're a baseball fan, Ann, but Ernie Banks was Mr. Cub, the great Chicago Cub, and it was a sunny day, and he said, "Hell, let's play two." and and so I felt the same way. It was a dark, miserable day, and I said, "Let's show two. Let's show two Val Lewton movies."
He's my favorite. I love Val Lewton.
And do you have any other great swimming pool scenes? I mean, obviously Sunset Boulevard is,
the one in the Sam Fuller film,
Underworld USA.
Underworld USA. Which that's a fantastic pool scene.
Absolutely spectacular. And of all of them, that's the one that comes closest to the scene in La Piscine.
Okay.
A little different, but the result is the same. There's also a really funny swimming pool scene in a movie called No Questions Asked with Barry Sullivan and Arlene Dahl. And it's just, it does nothing. It means nothing in terms of the plot, but it's set in a swimming pool where the big gangster is under the delusion that he is training for the Olympic swim team. So he plays the whole scene in this swimming pool where he's swimming, and it's crazy. So there's a lot of pool scenes. The best thing about pool scenes is the lighting. Mm-hmm. Pool scene in the daytime, not so, except, well, La Piscine, of course, is great because you get to see the bodies of, Alain Delon and Romy Schneider and Jane Birkin and all that stuff. But it's the scenes at night, or like in Cat People, the indoor swimming pool where the light is in the pool. That's what makes it so great. One of the most visually alluring things I know of is like a pool outdoors at night, all lit up. It's just so great. I recently showed Warning Shot as part of the neo-noir series on TCM, and that has some great pool stuff early on with the illuminated pool and the fog drifting over the surface of the water, and then you get the rippling effect on all the structures around the pool because the lights shimmer and it casts moving shadows. Oh man, that stuff's great. Okay.
Here we go again. This is from Michael. When I watched La Piscine for the first time recently, I was initially fooled in thinking it was a romantic French relationship movie. Turned out it was really a noir. Despite a bright look similar to Leave Her to Heaven, the movie has a dark underbelly where drowning is also deemed a convenient way to get rid of some unwanted person. Since I am a fan of Alain Delon, what is Eddie's take on La Piscine, and where does he rank it among Delon's noir character roles such as Purple Noon, Le Cercle Rouge, and Le Samurai?
I liked the film very much, and I even liked the strange remake that was done with Tilda Swinton, which I'm drawing a blank on it right now, what the title of it was, but it was very interesting because, of course, she plays, well, she doesn't actually play the Delon part, but she kind of does halfway, in that she's like the artist who doesn't produce anymore, right? Because in the movie, he's a writer, and in the Tilda Swinton one, she's like a rock star who's lost her voice. But it's still the same thing where the other characters are drawn to the villa, the hidden resort, not resort, you know what I'm saying, the hideaway, and then all the sexual dynamics and tension play out in private, and then dreadful things happen. I am a fan of Delon, despite his crummy politics these days, but it's impossible for me to place, he did so much stuff. He made so many films with so many great directors, back to Visconti and Rocco and his brothers. And, you can't go wrong if, it's worth 90 minutes of your time just to look at the guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So And I really love that the one he did with Jean Gabin, the Any Number Can Win.
Oh, it's a great
The
film.
heist picture. That is so fantastic. And to see him and Gabin playing against each other. And it's so beautiful because it's like Gabin was always the most handsome Frenchman. And then here comes Delon, and it's like they're going to go head to head. Like, you know, the young guy who's replacing the old stud, and the old stud's not going down without a fight, you know. It's good. It's really good.
Okay, so you.
Oh, my turn.
Yes.
My turn. Interesting. I see how you structure this. You find things related.
I do.
As far as I know, Leave Her to Heaven is the only noir in color from the classic period. Yes, great movie. Yes, with Gene Tierney against type as noir's most complicated and frightening villainess, one of most frightening villainesses. I wonder why more color noirs were not made, especially as this movie shows how going against type and using colors in a creative way could be used to enhance a noir mood. And you get a cool and scary Vincent Price in there too. Are there any other color noirs from that period? Well,
yep.
Yeah. But it's interesting that that is John, that John says that because clearly the artists making these films, the majority of them at that time saw this as a black and white thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anybody was in a rush to make them in color. And I don't think at the time, I think the color would have distinguished the film from the others by the people who made it. They would say, we're not doing one of those, right? We're doing a big, obviously it's going to be an A picture if it has lush color, like, you know, Leave Her to Heaven's 20th Century Fox, Niagara's 20th Century Fox. You know, Slightly Scarlet was another one. Help me out, Ann. You know, the Violent Saturday, which is a little soap opera. That I call that Douglas Sirk noir.
Yeah. Desert Fury is not color.
Desert Fury. You know, A Kiss Before Dying.
Yeah.
Is very much a noir. But I just think that the movement was a black and white thing, because those films were all shot by the, you know, virtually the best black and white cinematographer at every studio.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's how it worked. And then Leave Her to Heaven is Leon Shamroy doing the cinematography, and he is not really associated with noir, you know. But of course, Slightly Scarlet is John Alton shooting noir in colors. So I say to John, if there's one that you want to try to find, it's Slightly Scarlet.
Yeah.
Because you get to see what that is truly traditional noir imagery with the lurid color of like 50s paperback book covers and stuff. That's oh, look at that pose. Oh my God. She's even singing now. Oh, Charlotte, you're such a vamp. Look at her. Okay, did you?
Sorry, I was just gonna. Well, two things. One is it always seemed to me like I always find Fox noirs really interesting because like each studio's noirs look differently, but Fox's are really interesting because they really look differently than anybody else's. They're not. They're just shot very differently, and to me, it's not surprising that so many of theirs are in color compared to other studios.
Right.
Which is it's just an interesting thing. And the other thing I was going to say is I really, really, really wish someone would do a color restoration of Slightly Scarlet.
Yeah, I know.
That's my dream.
Yeah. Well, you got to find the original materials, you know.
Yeah.
We'll see. But even the original materials are probably beyond help now.
Yeah.
It might have to be digitally restored,
you
know, so that you can enhance the color and stuff, because the original, it was an independent film, and I'm sure the materials were not kept in the best condition. So they might only, you know, serve the purpose so far to get it restored. Anyway, shall I? No, you read the next one.
What is the music that plays at the beginning of Noir Alley? That's from John.
That is the Noir Alley theme.
Yeah.
By Rex Hall is the musician who created it. He's a staff musician for Turner, and that is the theme song. But I will say this: don't get too attached to it.
Okay. Wait, where are we? You're doing the next question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Of course. Dear Eddie, Ann, and Charlotte, bring her back. Is Truffaut Sheep the piano player or any of his other movies late noir, neo-noir, or not? Are there any, Lawrence, thank you for the question. Are there any other French New Wave directors who were influenced by noir besides Truffaut? And do you think we can say that Charles Aznavour is a French version of Sinatra, the man with the golden arm? Or am I seeing things? Well, the day Charles Aznavour is as good a singer as Frank Sinatra, even suggesting, I get what you're saying, Lawrence, but honestly, no. But yes, the new wave guys were all very influenced by noir. You know, all of them. Obviously, Jean-Pierre Melville was, you know, a disciple of the American noir style. And Godard, you know, when he made Breathless, that was clearly inspired by American B movies. He dedicated the movie to Monogram Pictures. Yeah. And, you know, Belmondo is kind of imitating Bogart throughout the whole thing. And, you know, and he's imitating shots from Gun Crazy and stuff. But, you could argue, you know, a lot of Claude Chabrol's movies are noir. Jacques Becker's movies are, you know, there's a lot of noir in there. Yes, there were, and not just the guys who were synonymous with the new wave, but a lot of Henri Decoing and these filmmakers. Yes, the influence is immense. You're not seeing things at all.
Can Shakespeare become noir? Specifically, I'm thinking of Caesar Must Die, Italy 2012, shot in black and white inside the Rabbia prison. A group of convicts put on a production of Julius Caesar. That was my note because I didn't know what it was. Okay. Betrayal, intrigue, tension, not exactly a happy ending, but no hard-boiled dames. And that's Judy from Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Judy. You know, everything comes back to Shakespeare, right? So, you know, you could argue that Hamlet, you could do a very noir Hamlet. You could do a very noir King Lear.
Yeah.
You know, it's very adaptable because Shakespeare kind of wrote every plot that you could think of, right? And some of them are going to be noir. So yes, I sometimes, I know that there are a lot of people out there who bristle at this stuff when people stretch noir, which I have called it elastic, but you can stretch it like to the breaking point where, you know, I saw somebody the other day, like The Wizard of Oz is noir. And it's like, you know, fun to think of it, you know, but, you know, so if you want to see noir elements in Shakespeare, fine, but I'm in no way am I going to say Shakespeare is noir.
Yeah.
That's it. So, okay, question for you. I recently read Robin Robertson's novel, The Long Take, which we've discussed here. It left me wondering if either of you know of any other connections between noir and Nova Scotia, where Randy is from. I often think of noir as taking place in metropolitan areas and large cities, rightfully so, but would be fascinating to learn of other instances of Nova Scotia noir. Do you think does it strike you as a particularly noir place? I have no idea. Having never been to Nova Scotia, I can't say. But if the same sort of things apply to Nova Scotia that apply to the Scandinavian countries, where noir has become a huge thing, and I don't think it's just because, you get night, prolonged for, half the year in these places. But I don't really have an answer for Randy's question, because I don't know that much about Nova Scotia. And to be quite honest, I'm going to sound like an idiot saying this, but I kind of can't remember the Nova Scotia elements in the long, what is it? The long take? Wasn't that what it was called? Yeah, the long take. I remember the New York and the LA parts of it very much. Yeah. I didn't recall there being stuff in Nova Scotia, but you ever been to Nova Scotia, Ann?
No, but I've seen a couple of films set there, and it looked like really, really beautiful.
Yeah,
it's just what I remembered.
I imagine it being like anti-noir, like you're out in nature in a beautiful lake or something, and it's cold as hell, but like there's hot mineral baths, or that's what I'm thinking of when I think of Nova Scotia. So I don't know. Doesn't seem very noirish to me, unless you drown somebody in one of these things.
We're back to the drowning.
Maybe that film exists. Or drown in a fjord in Nova Scotia.
Excuse me. Let's see. Doug submitted 3 questions, and I am saving one of them for another broadcast because 2 of the questions were kind of complicated. Okay, so first, this is the easy one. Can I please get Noir Not Judgment cast calls on 3 of Elia Kazan's movies? Streetcar Named Desire.
No.
On the Waterfront.
On the Fence.
Baby Doll.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that Kazan is a noir. He's made films that are considered noir, Boomerang and Panic in the Streets, and On the Waterfront, you could, that has the most criminal elements. It's not, there's always the psychodrama aspect of these films. That's everything that Kazan did, that's everything that Tennessee Williams did. But I've never shown On the Waterfront at a Noir City Festival or on Noir Alley. So I think that kind of tells you where I am on that. I love the film. I think it's a really, really great film. But I kind of just leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's more of, if we're going to say to me, it's more of a gangster film, especially in the sense of like the whole brother relationship, which you see in a lot of the Warner Brother.
Sure. Which of course, you also see that in Force of Evil, which I have no hesitation calling that a film noir.
Yeah.
So, maybe I should go to an analyst and have them explain to me like why I think of Force of Evil as a film noir, but I don't think of On the Waterfront necessarily as a film noir, even though it's got, Lee J. Cobb, doing his most Lee J. Cobb-y thing ever in that movie. But I just don't. I just think of it as a drama. I guess Terry's a tortured character and everything, but it never feels to me like he's going to ever really do the wrong thing,
Yeah, and also the way it talks about morality feels really different from me than the way that is addressed in a noir.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree. And I'm sure a lot of people right now are typing on the, when this goes up on Facebook, that, that was Bud Schulberg's apologia for ratting out, all their fellow travelers, because it's like, it's the film that makes informing honorable.
Yeah.
Which I could, I have no opinion about that one way or the other. I mean, it's the story that it is. Whatever informed it is what informed it, but it exists as its own thing, And it's a beautifully written and beautifully made film, So, and Eva Marie Saint
she's incredible in it.
Phenomenal in that movie. So,
yeah.
Anyway, great movie.
Yeah. Okay. So this is Doug's second question. I recently rewatched Chinatown, and one thing that struck me this time is how the film's opening credits are filmed in sepia, but when the film transitions to Technicolor, the cinematography continues the sepia tone visual motif throughout the rest of the movie, with warm earth colors predominating. But he'd also employed a similar warm earth color palette. In fact, I believe it could be argued that these two films pretty much set the visual template for postmodern noirs, or at least noirs set in warm climates. What do you think?
Yes. I'm glad that who wrote this?
Our friend Doug in Silver Springs.
Okay, I'm glad that Doug qualified it at the end there by saying noir set in warmer climates, because I don't really believe it set the template for neo-noir stuff. Although I will say that Chinatown, in terms of its cinematography, it was a very influential film. And I do want to cite how genius Roman Polanski is, because that title sequence, which is, as Doug says, is a sepia-toned black and white, when they come out of the title sequence into the film proper, it's the close-up of Curly looking at black and white photographs. So the transition is to black and white imagery within a color frame. So when he starts tossing the photographs, and then it cuts to the wide shot where he's like throws them in the air and leans against the Venetian blinds, it's like Polanski is like capturing all these noir tropes and changing them in like a matter of seconds. Because what's the first thing you see in Chinatown? Venetian blinds, right?
Yeah.
That are a standard in noir films. And he has the guy bite them and chew on them.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's absolutely brilliant, everything he does in that movie. But I don't think there's a template for the look of color noir. Because I noticed this with all the films I was showing in that neo-noir series, that they look different. Because Harper and Warning Shot were 60s noirs, and they looked very pop art.
Yeah.
In their color. The colors were really strong and vivid, and were kind of an analogy to, like, instead of solid black that you'd see in noir, you'd get like solid purple or something, which I really enjoyed. Phil Lathrop's cinematography in Warning Shot is really interesting. How he uses the primary colors as like a substitute for the stark black and white. But I don't think there's any, The Long Goodbye doesn't look like anything. And Farewell, My Lovely sort of went all the way, with saturating the colors to find its corollary to the old black and white, and I don't think it worked as well as Chinatown. But definitely when you see Blade Runner, that was a hugely influential film in terms of the cinematography, because that's where you started to see a lot of post-production alteration of the color, and where you started controlling it after the fact and not in the camera. Anyway, that's, it is interesting to note that a lot of these films, they do consciously try to emulate the black and white films in color. And, and there are different ways you can do it. So I don't know. I hope I pointed out some of them.
Who is the cinematographer on Chinatown?
John Alonzo. And that really broke him out. I mean, he unfortunately has passed away, but that was the film that made him, in demand. And it was interesting because Stanley Cortez, who shot a lot of films back in the day, right? He was the cinematographer on The Magnificent Ambersons and a lot of other stuff. Stanley Cortez was fired by Polanski from the production because he was too slow. He could not keep up with Polanski's ideas, and his lighting setups were just too time consuming. And Alonzo knew how to get the effects but be very economical and just get to it, you know.
Mhm.
And he did a masterful job on that movie. The other guy I love is Jordan Cronenweth. He shot Blade Runner, but he also did stuff like Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, which I love the cinematography in that movie. And he did Cutter's Way, which is one of my all-time favorite California movies because he understands California light.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, me now? Okay, and this
Yes.
this is our last one.
This is the last question.
Which is good timing because I have an 8:15 dinner reservation. So, okay. Spoilers ahead. Oh, this is a funny one. This is Brian. Okay, this is crazy. I'm just going to read this really fast because this is kind of involved.
Yes.
I loved Body Heat.
And by the way, I cut this down considerably.
Okay. I loved Body Heat when it came out, but the plot has always bothered me. And again, we're doing spoilers here.
Yes.
Fake Maddie, that's the character played by Kathleen Turner, must have had a local dentist in the 3 years that she was in Florida, yet the investigators must have gotten the dental records of the woman whose body they found from Illinois. The real Maddie's family would have been notified and would suddenly hear that she was married in Florida, etc. Finally, Maddie would have to liquidate her inheritance and transfer the money into an account she would have access to from Brazil before faking her death. The fact that the money was transferred and lost would certainly raise suspicion. So either the plot makes no realistic sense or else the narrator is unreliable, imagining her on the beach and that the pictures are wrong, etc. What do you think? I think, Brian, you're overthinking it. That's what I think. You know, and it's funny because I know a lot of people who look at mystery novels and things in a very, very practical way. You know, that couldn't have happened. Lee Langford, I'm looking at you. I hope Lee's watching because Lee always writes to me after Noir Alley, and Lee is a very, very accomplished writer in his own right and has written a lot of crime novels. But he always says, well, this doesn't make any sense because this never could have happened and blah. And it's like, that's called suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
Right. And Lawrence Kasdan wanted Maddie Walker to get away with it. And that's what was going to happen. And however, he had to bend himself into, you know, pretzels to make that happen. He was going to do that. And the thing is, it is so satisfying that most people don't look that closely because, and that's the trick of writing stuff that has a twist, is you have to make the twist so satisfying that nobody looks closely. It's a magic trick. It's definitely a magic trick, you know? And that moment in Body Heat when he's in the jail and he opens his eyes and goes, she's alive. You know, that's it. You're hooked. You know, that was a beautiful way to shoot that. And, you know, seriously, Brian, if you want to imagine that he's just dreaming all of this because he got taken, go right ahead. I mean, that's your interpretation of the film and you're entitled to it. But I just think that if you ask Lawrence Kasdan, he would say, I pulled it off.
Yeah.
You know, I pulled the wool over everybody's eyes. And it's not like that's a flaw. That's the thing that I want to impress here. It's not a flaw because somebody finds a gap in the logic. The success is in having 98% of the people who watch the movie not see the flaw. That's the magic trick, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think that's a problem.
And I certainly, you know, it's so funny too, because those kind of things don't really bother me because like I just don't notice them a lot of times if I'm caught up in the story. I think the things that tend to bother me are just things where I think it has like a negative reflection into real life. I mean, my primary thing on this is mental health issues, which really make me crazy, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's just things in it. Like I was just watching a film and it was good, but they had these two orderlies in a mental hospital just acting outrageously. And it was just sort of like, that would never happen.
Yeah.
And also people that work in mental hospitals are I mean, I've been to see someone close to me that was committed several times. Those people are saints. That is a really difficult job.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They're very professional and they're very kind. And so that kind of thing bothers me more than like a plot contrivance.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. And in many ways, you play it straight and you try to get everything believable.
Yeah.
To build up credibility so that you can get away with the one unbelievable thing in the story, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm going to do this and this, and then everybody's going to believe my story, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. It harkens back to one of these earlier questions where somebody said, you know, and we're asked to believe that this is real. You know, it was the spirituality question had some reference to, but aren't we just buying into the stories in these movies? And it's like, yes, that's the entire point. The entire point when every writer sets out to write a story is to make you buy into it.
Yeah.
Right. Which is not the same as make you believe it. Because I will buy in to stuff that I don't believe. If you're doing it right, if you're telling me the story and I'm receiving it and you're winning, every moment of skepticism, if the artist wins it, it's like, okay. And this is, I'm buying in. And this is why actors are so incredibly important to writers.
Yeah.
Is that it's the actors that make you buy it, right? So Kathleen Turner and William Hurt make you buy it in that movie. I mean, they sell the story, right? And it to me it works completely. Just like Linda Fiorentino in The Last Seduction.
Yeah.
You know, she makes you buy that character, and there are some plot holes in that story, but I don't care because I'm in with her, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's just it really when you know, in a good film you get emotionally involved in it, and just like when you're emotional in real life, you you can miss things because you're in your emotion.
Gee whiz, do you think that sometimes people overlook the flaws in others when they're emotionally involved? Do you think that happens?
Yeah, I believe
I'd say that's like a major point in noir. Is like I didn't see that in them, you know. It's kind of the same thing in movies, you know. You know. I mean, it's so funny. I remember watching Sunset Boulevard one time, and at the end of the movie, which I consider to be one of the great films ever made, this guy comes out into the lobby and he says, I couldn't buy it. I couldn't buy it. And I'm like, what couldn't you buy? And he says, a guy that looks like William Holden would never fall for a woman that looks like Gloria Swanson. And I'm like, what planet is this guy from? You know, like, have you lived in the real world? Did you not see every bit of motivation and how Billy Wilder created a completely believable situation in which a guy that looks like William Holden would fall for glorious, you know, fall in the, you know, how I'm using it. But yeah, that story is completely believable to me.
Yeah, because young, handsome men never prostitute themselves.
Yeah, so sometimes I hear these comments and it's like, wow, what movie were you watching? So.
Well, and I said that jokingly, but it also may not have been the ability for him to see that men, in fact, do things like that too. I mean, that'd be maybe a worldview thing.
But you know, I'm not knocking Brian's comment here about body heat. It's just like that's the way some people look at a mystery. Like, does it hold water? And they will tunnel down to expose where the cracks are. Yeah. And then the boat sinks, right? And I have having written these things, I can tell you that, you know, those novels that were mentioned at the top of this recording, there's stuff in there that it's like I spent so much time like, how do I get past this? How do I pull the reader past this obvious sticking point?
Yeah.
You know, and you do it by writing compelling characters.
Yeah.
You just follow them, and that's how that works. So, okay. I have to put some pants on.
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
Before you see Ms. Delaney.
Yeah, I'm going to do that, and then I'll report back, or you'll see the results of all this coming up pretty soon
On Noir Alley.
On Noir Alley. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay, and
okay,
that was fun.
It was fun, and good luck with the rest of your week in Atlanta.
I'm sure everything will go very, very well, and then we'll pick up where we left off here.
Absolutely. Soon. We'll see you all next time.
And I want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching this, and for the great questions. Much appreciated.
Yeah, very appreciated. Thanks a lot. Have a good night.
Okay, take care.